Late Night with the Devil is directed by Cameron and Colin Cairns and stars David Dastmalchian. A live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. Now, when I first heard about this film, it was an intriguing premise in my mind, and I didn't really want to look at any posters or look at any trailers. I had no idea what this movie looked like or what it was going to be, so I went to the movie very blind and not knowing what I'm getting myself into, and I felt like that was the best possible way I could watch this film, because I found this to be a very intriguing and entertaining horror film that does something very unique within its genre and was able to do a lot of cool stuff with this premise that I felt like it was able to stand out as one of the more unique, scary, Halloween themed films I've seen in quite a while. David Dastmalchian gives what is, in my opinion, his best performance in his entire career. The character of Jack Delroy is someone who has a lot of layers going on, and on screen, and when he's not being recorded for television, you can see a lot of layers within this character, and you have no idea what his mindset is really like, what he's actually thinking. Is he a selfish guy who's literally knowingly risking everything for television? Or does he genuinely want to have something fun going on and is getting too carried away by what is really happening and not seeing that things are going wrong and that he needs to actually pay more attention and is like too naive about it? Or is he like a jerk and knows what he's doing and is trying to hide something? And it's like a combination of all these things that hides what is truly happening behind the scenes in his mind. Because each moment in the film that builds with conflict with many of the people being in this late night show, and they're trying to give certain opinions about this evil demonic entity, it basically all connects to him. Something is always connecting to this character, and you're always intrigued as to what is going on, because the opening of the film is like a documentary, having us understand what this episode is going to be. It's giving us a basic rundown of this man's life story, but once we look at this recording, we see so much under the surface of this character, and it creates a sense of mystery and intrigue. But because of the subject of what is happening and the many terrible things that build upon each other as the film goes on and how much the terror heightens, you become scared as to what is really lurking behind the scenes of this man's mind. And you always feel tense. Not just the fact that the actual demonic entity itself is really scary and how they built this thing up, I found to be really unique and fun. I was also really tense and terrified as to how this is all gonna go wrong because of this one man's decision to try and do something either selfless or selfish. And this character of Jack Delroy was like one of the most interesting characters to have come out of this film and gave me a lot to think about, as it also explores themes of what would you do for fame and how far you're willing to go to risk everything just to be at the top. And this character, by the end, either learns his lesson or doesn't. We know he sees everything is going wrong, but what is he really feeling at this moment is very interesting. The ending left a lot of questions unanswered, and it did it in a way that I found to be really scary. I also found the way the movie decided to tell its story and how it's formatted and shot, very interesting. As I said, the first act is like a documentary. The second act is like an actual TV episode with some behind the scenes footage of what happened. And then at some point at the end, it gets very creative, and I'm not going to spoil much of what happens there, but how they presented everything that the story is leading towards. It was something that just rattled my brain all over the place. I found the directing in that section of the film to be extremely good, and the horror stuff really well handled. It's not a perfect film though. I had some problems. The movie at times uses CGI effects, and it doesn't always work. I felt like it could have done some weird retro effects that could have looked a little bit less lower budget. Like it could have looked a little more fuzzy, and the quality doesn't look that crisp. But it's not really in the movie all that much to just distract me. But when it's there, it is pretty noticeable. And sometimes a movie can have a repetitive feeling in the second act, and it just gets, it's like an episode of TV that they're trying to mimic, but it can get repetitive at times in the way the story is being told in that second act and in some parts of the first act. And it's not like a big problem, as the TV episodic nature feels natural and it actually feels like you're watching an episode of television. Because you're watching a movie, the repetitiveness of the storytelling and script can just stick out to you at times. But it's really not that big of a problem. I felt like this was done by design and it worked for the most part. I just think it could have been tightened up just a little bit more, and the story could have flowed a little bit better. As for the rest of the horror stuff going on in this film, I found it to be scary. It used a lot of practical effects and makeup effects that make it feel like an old classic 80s horror film, and I really like that. I like the retro vibe it's going for, as it fits within the setting of this movie. I really love the aesthetic, and it felt really natural with the costume and production design as well, and the way the characters are acted here, and how a lot of these characters are very distinguishable and they have different personality traits, and you understand them all, and you're just waiting for something to go wrong and how these characters are going to react to what's happening. But again, David Dastmalchian's character and performance cannot be understated. A lot is riding on this character, as he's probably the most intriguing in terms of characterization. He has the most going on in the film. We learned the most about him, and how the film concludes his character was just something that is going to leave me thinking for a few weeks as to what I just watched. And his performance just sold every single moment he was on screen. He was absolutely fantastic. Overall, I had a really good time with The Late Night with the Devil, and I'm gonna give it an A-. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys next time.